What's going on, guys? Welcome to Amigoscode. In this tutorial, I want to teach you how to build a full registration system where we're going to implement this application right here with secure endpoints, an application user with some roles, the user registration with controllers, service, and also we're going to have verification links and also send emails. So this course is actually really hands-on on building a backend system right here. So we have a person that wants to become a user in our system, so here, but then it goes through this flow right here, and once they verify their email, then they become an application user with the role of user. So let me quickly give you a demo right here. So basically I've got this post request, so amigos, and then this should be capital C. So we want to register this person. I'm going to send. So right here, we should see an email coming through very soon. There we go. And I actually have a typo on the email right here. So LOW@amigoscode.com. And right here, hi amigos. And then thanks for registering. Please click on the link below to activate your account. And also the link will expire in 15 minutes. So basically everything will be working. And then I'm going to activate now. And you can see that it's confirmed. And now, which means that I can go back to this application. And right here, let me just log out first. So I want to log out. And here, so the email was, so LOW. My email is actually hello at, not LOW. So just copy that and then paste that in. And then here the password was password, and then enter. And there we go. You can see that we actually get 404 because there is nothing configured under this path here. So there's no mapping here, but everything worked beautifully. So yeah, so you can also grab the source code for the entire project under the link, or actually under the description of this video. Yeah, so if you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up. All of the related courses for this little project, I'm going to leave some links as well where you can learn about Spring Data JPA, some front end databases. So we're going to be using Postgres. So here you can see that we have the registration going on. So if I select from the token, so you can see that this was the token right now that was issued to myself, and then it was confirmed just now. So you can see the timestamp there. And also if I select, let me just go up. So app users, there we go. So you can see that basically, so right here, this is me, so hello right here, and the password is actually encrypted. Yeah, or actually, yeah, using bcrypt, by the way. Yeah, so this is a complete tutorial where I just thought maybe it would be fun to build something like this together, because learning how to do something like this can be really valuable, and hopefully you can learn something new here. So yeah, so also one thing that we're not going to focus in this tutorial is about testing and you know, unit testing, integration testing. If you want to learn about testing, I'm also going to leave everything under the description of this video, so you learn how to build proper software. Without further ado, let's kick off this video. Let's go ahead and bootstrap this project with Spring Initializer. Navigate to start.spring.io, and in here we're going to pick Java as the main language, and then the version 2.41. Basically pick any version that you see here because this will work. And then for metadata, I'm going to leave as it is. For packaging jar, and I have Java 15 installed. Now for dependencies, I'm going to click on add dependencies. And here we're going to pick a couple of dependencies. One, I want to pick Lombok, so I'm going to press Command and then click on it. And I also want Spring Web, and we also need Spring Security. And also we need this one here where we want to connect to a Postgres database here. So Postgres driver. And we also need Spring Data JPA. There we go. And finally, we need mail. So we want to send emails. So I think it's right at the bottom. Actually, let me just search for it. So mail. There we go. Java mail sender, command, and then that. And I think that's everything. So if I press escape, and you can see all of the dependencies. So Lombok. So this is to reduce the boilerplate code with all the getters and setters, and you'll see this in a second. And then Spring Web for RESTful applications, security to secure our application. And then we have Spring Data JPA for persisting data in SQL, and then Java Mail for sending emails. So basically in here, we have all the dependencies for this diagram here. So we're going to implement everything. So now let me go ahead and actually generate this project. And also I'm going to share this with you. So let me just generate the project. I'm going to say allow. And here I can share this. So I'm going to copy this link, and then I'm going to put this in the description of this video. So you can just download the zip file. All right, now let me go ahead and open up my desktop. And in here, I'm using IntelliJ. So go ahead and install IntelliJ with Toolbox. So Toolbox right here. So Toolbox. So this awesome application where you can pretty much just manage all of your IDEs. So now I'm going to click on open. Or actually first I need to extract this. So cancel, extract. There we go. And now I can dash this to the bin, and I'm going to open desktop demo and then open. Cool. So this will open the project for us. So now it's resolving all the dependencies. So just give it a second. And cool. So now open up demo, and in here open up source. And by the way, if I open up pom.xml, you can see that we have all the dependencies. So JPA, mail, security, and right here, starter web, Postgres, Lombok, and this is for testing, and also this is for testing with Spring Security. And this is pretty much everything. So if I close the pom.xml, open up the main file, and the first thing that we're going to do here is to create, or actually let me rename this to application, and instead of properties, this will be .yaml, just like that. And in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste some code here, and basically this contains the configuration for connecting to a database. So right here, localhost 5432, this is the name of the database, you'll see in a second. And then this is some JPA specific. If you want to learn more about all of this, check my courses on YouTube and on my website where I teach all of this. So now in here, in my terminal, I'm going to type PSQL. So I'm using Postgres for the database, and \L. Also, if you want to learn more about SQL, I've got a course on SQL and Postgres, so you should definitely check those out. And it's absolutely for free, by the way. So here, you can see that I've got a couple of databases. So what I want to do is create, and then data base, and then registration. So registration, and then semicolon, and there we go. So if I clear the screen \L, you can see that we have registration right here. So now this means that this name is my database name, and now I should be able to connect to my database. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to open up project and then open up main. So what we're going to do is the following. So basically in here you see that we have the Spring Security. So this is where we configure the endpoints, roles, and then registration. Basically let's actually tackle the application user and then define some roles and also the service for it, because everything then will actually be based on the app user. So a person will then become an application user when they actually register to our application. So in here, what I'm going to do is go back to IntelliJ and let's create a new package. So here, package, and here I'm going to call this app and then user. Inside here, we need to have a class called app and then user. So this is the user itself, so the application user. And then here, what we're going to do is say that this implements and then user and then details. So the reason why we are implementing user details is to do with security, and you'll see this in a second. But there we go. So now we actually have to basically fill these in. So what we're going to do is the following. We're going to define, so let me actually put this full screen. So here we're going to define a couple of properties. So here what we want to have the ID, so private, and then long ID. We also want name, so name, or actually string name. And basically I've just gone ahead and added a username, email, and password in here. So we also want to have, so private, and then this will be app and then user and then role. And this will be an enum. So let's actually create that. So here we're going to create this. So this will be app, user, and then role, and then enum. So here, basically we want to have a user, and also we want to have an admin. So if you want to learn more about Spring Security, go ahead and check my course on Spring Security, where I cover everything that I'm doing here. So now you can see that the error went away. And here I'm going to say that I also want to have, so private, and then I want to check basically whether the account is locked. So Boolean, oops, not that, but Boolean, and then locked, and then private, and then Boolean, and then enabled. There we go. So now let's go ahead and basically in here, let's fill in these fields. So for the granted authorities, so here, so in here, return and then null, and this is the method granted authorities. What I want is to return, basically this will be simple and then granted authority equals to new and then simple granted authority. And now I'm going to grab the role name. So here, app user role dot and then name, just like that, and put this on a new line so you can see everything. There we go. So now I can return a collection. So here I'm going to say return and then collections dot and then singleton and then list, and then pass the authority there. Now for the password, we're going to return password. For username, we're going to return username. For is account, I want to say true for now, and basically we're not keeping track for this in for this course, but here you can also manage this. And then here is account non-locked. What I'm going to do is actually flip this. I'm going to say locked, and then here I'm going to reverse this, so it makes more sense. And then is account non-expired, so I'm going to say true. And I really don't like the way that they've done this, non-expired. And then finally we have is enabled, and this will be enabled. There we go. So now we have all of these being returned, as well as the authorities. So this is for in here. So this is the application user has authority, right, to basically access certain API endpoints and do a few things depending on the actual role, whether it's an admin or a user. So if I go back in here, what I need now is the getters and setters. So I'm going to be using a Lombok for this. So at and then getter and then at and then setter. And I also want at equals an hash code and at no R constructor. And there we go. So I also want to have one constructor without the ID. And this is because the ID will be auto generated for us when we create the entity with JPA in a second. So here I'm going to say constructor and select everything but ID. So it would be nice for Lombok to have actually a way of us defining this with annotations, but I don't think there is. So here, put this on a new line, just like so. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say at and an entity. So this will be a table in our database in a second. And then for the ID, what I want is this to be a sequence. So I'm going to say at, and then this will be ID right here. And make sure that this is from persistence, basically this package here. So persistence, right? Because then we can change the provider easily. And then what we need is to say at and then sequence generator. And inside I'm going to say name equals to and then student and then sequence. And then I also need the sequence name. So this will be the exact same thing. So there. So sequence name, just like that. And then here allocation size equals to 1. And now let's also say that the value for this will be at and then generated value right here. This will be strategy and then sequence. Oops, just like that. And here we need to say generator and then the name. So that will be student sequence, and I could call it generator, but it's fine. So there we go. So actually, let me just put this right here. It doesn't really matter where you put these annotations. And yeah, so there you have it. So this is for the ID, and also in here, so for the application user role, because this is an enum, this is an enum, we need to say at and then enumerated and then enum type. So inside enum type and then string. So you will see everything up and running in a second once we start the application. So there we go. So this is the app user. Now let's also create the service. So class and then app user and then service. And this class here will implement a class or an interface specifically for Spring Security, and that is D. So we're gonna say implements and then user and then details and then service. So this is actually how we find users once we try to log in, and you'll see this in a second. So load and then user by username. So if I put this full screen, so there we go. And right here, we have to find a way for us to find a user by the username. So in our case, the username will be the email. And what we need is a way for us to have a query against our database. So here, I'm going to say student and then repository. And this will be an interface. And for this interface here, I'm going to say at and then transactional. And then here, I've got read only and then true. And let's have an interface here where I'm going to say optional, or actually a method. And this will return an app user. And then I'm going to say find and then by and then email. So make sure it's the exact same thing here, because this will construct the actual query for us. So here, there we go. And here we're going to pass the email just like that. And now we need to annotate this also with at and then repository, even though it's not necessary, but still good practice. So the integration with IntelliJ becomes obvious. So now if I go back to the service class in here and put this full screen, now I'm going to annotate also this class with at and then service. And now let's have a reference to, so actually let me put this just like that so you see everything. So let's have a reference to the repository. So private final and then user repository, or actually app user. And what did I call it? Oh my god, I call it student. The reason why I call it student is because I've done a video on students recently. So this is app and then user and then repository, my bad. So there we go. So now, so app user and then repository and then app user repository. Now in here, I'm not going to add to the constructor because I'm going to use Lombok, and I'm going to say that this will have at and then all args constructor, and you can see the error went away. So now I can pretty much just, so in here, I can say return and then app user repository. So app user repository, lowercase here, dot, and then or dot, and then find by email, and then pass s there. So this will be the email, and here email, and then here I'm going to say dot or else throw, and then we're going to throw, so we're going to throw the username not found exception, right? So new username not found exception, and then inside, so here, let me just put this on a new line so you see. Oh, actually, let's just have a message here. So private final static and then string and then user not and then found equals to, and basically I'm going to say user with email and then %s not and then found, just like that. And now in here, what I can do is, so let me put this again in here. I can say string dot and then format and then pass the message. So user not found and then pass the email, just like that. And I think we are good. So here, let me actually rename this to message, just like that. And there we go. So basically you can see that the reason why I'm putting this on a new line is that you can see everything. Otherwise I don't have it like that. The font is so big, which makes it super difficult for you to see what I'm doing. So yeah, so this is pretty much right. So now we actually have, so we have the app user, we have the repository, and then we have the role, and also we have the service in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to basically, let me just change the order of this in here. So just like that, I don't need that in there. So basically in here, what we're going to do is the following. So we have this app user, and then we're going to build upon things. So here we have the user registration right here, user registration. So let's actually start from here and then build the sign up and then verify the email as we go. So let's create yet another package, and this time we're going to call it registration. There we go. And right here, let's create a class. So here we're going to say registration, or we could say user registration controller. It doesn't really matter. So registration and then controller. There we go. This will be at, and then rest. I can't type today. So rest controller. And what we want also is to change the path for this, right? So we want to say here that this will have at, and then request, and then mapping. And the request mapping for this, the path will be, so here I'm just saying API, and then / v1 / and then registration. There we go. So I've managed to spell registration correctly. And also let's have the at and then all as constructor. Now that we have this controller, we need to have a method to register. Basically we take, so in here we take this person along with some information, and then we want to register this person. So here what we're going to do is we're going to have a method. So here I'm going to say public, and then here let's say string, and I'm going to say register, and you'll see why string in a second. So I'm going to say register, and at, and then request, and then body. From the request body, I want to capture. So here I'm going to capture the registration and then request. And I'm going to call it request. And then in here, I'm going to say return, and then registration service. And basically you can see where I'm going with this. So service, and then dot register, and then pass the request. So now we don't have neither the request nor the service. So let's create both. So here, so inside of the registration package, so here I'm going to say registration, and then service, and here this registration package also needs the, so registration and then request. There we go. So for the request, when the client sends a request, we want to capture a few things. So we want to capture, so here private final, and then string, and then first name. And if I duplicate this a couple of times, so there we go. So here we want last name. We also want password, and we also want email. So let me just put that in there just like that. So now let's generate a couple of things. So here we want to generate the getters, and also we want to generate the constructor. So at, and then all our constructor, and let's also have the equals, and let's also have the at, and then to string. There we go, just like that. I was finding it a bit difficult to find. So yeah, so basically this is the request. So now let's go back to the controller, and we still have to basically have the reference to our service, so private, and in here we want the registration and then service, just like that, and problem solved. Now the register method we don't have, so let's create it. So I've just pressed option and then enter, and then create the method. There we go. And here I'm just going to return null for now. So basically you can see that how this is coming together. Now what I want to do is, before we go or actually before we move any further on this, so I just want to start the application and configure Spring Security so that things are working before we actually move on. So here, let me actually say works. So basically we should get to a point where we can see works from our request, and then we'll carry on. So for the security side of things, what we're going to do is create another package here, and then I'm going to say security. There we go. And inside of this package, let's go ahead and create the following. So when it comes to Spring Security, we have really one package where we configure things, and that is so inside, so here, oops. So here, let me have yet another package, and I'm going to call it config. Oh, not config. So just rename that. So con and then fig. And inside of this config class, I'm going to have a class called, or actually package, I'm going to have a class called web and then security config. Just like that. And then enter. And there we go. So also, I want, oh, actually I've got typo here. So let me just fix this typo. So security, just like that. And also I want to have another class here called password and then encoder. And you'll see this in a second. And this should be really outside. So basically, I don't want this class inside of security. So let me actually, in here, I'm going to say, or actually config, I'm just going to say it's inside of this package. I'm going to move to this package, just like that. And if I open up security, I don't know why it did that, but here you can see that we have now, it's outside of this config package. So inside of this web security, the configuration really, it's, once you get used to it, it's not that difficult, but I've covered all of this in my course. So I definitely would advise you to go and check it out. But what we need here is first to annotate this with add and then configuration. And then I'm going to add an add all arg constructor. And the magic really, it's when we enable Spring and then security right here. So add enable Spring Security. Now here, in order for us to customize this, we need to extend a class called web and then security and then configure and then adapter, just like that. So in here, what we need is to have the following. So we need to override. So let's override methods. And the method I want to override is the configure method that takes the HTTP security. Now inside here, what I want to do first is, so I'm going to delete this, and here I'm going to say HTTP, and then on a new line .crf, and then .disable. So this is so that I can send the post requests without being rejected, and I've covered why I disabled this. And this is just temporarily, right? So if you are using, if you are going to use phone-based authentication as we are using, then you should definitely enable this. But again, go ahead and check my course where I explain all of this. So now I want to say .authorize and then requests, and then here, and then ant, and then matches, and inside I want to say /, so this is the pattern, so API, and then / v1, and this actually could be star, so oops, not emojis, but star, and then / registration, and then / and then star. So I want to enable everything within, or basically not enable, but I want to permit. So I want to say dot and then permit all. So anything that goes, or actually any request that goes through this endpoint, we want to allow it. Sometimes it's best if you have, for example, a more concrete example, instead of, you know, basically allowing everything. Maybe you just want to have full control of what you are allowing the client to access. But in here, I'm allowing everything under registration. So I want to permit all in here. And then I want to say that dot any request dot authenticated must be authenticated, and we want to use form dot and then form and then login. And there we go. So this is the configuration needed. Now we need to basically configure a few things, or actually override a few things. So the other thing that we need to override is, so override methods. We need to override the configure that takes the auth manager builder. And basically this guy here, in here, we need to say auth dot and then authentication provider, and we have to basically pass one. So here, let's go ahead and have a bean. So add and then bean, and then here we're going to say public and then DAO and then authentication. So this is one implementation. So authentication provider, just like that, and DAO provider, and here I'm going to say DAO, so DAO provider, I'm going to call it provider equals to new line, new, and then DAO authentication provider. And in here, I want to say provider dot and then set and then password encoder. And here, I'm going to say also provider dot set and then user details service. And then I want to return the provider. Now remember, so when we added the user, so app user service, we implemented user details service, which means that we can use this guy in our provider. So here I'm going to say private, or actually private, not protected. So private and then final and then app user and then service. There we go. And basically all our constructor adds that, so we don't have to do anything here. And in here, so where we set the user details, we pass the service, so app user service. Now for the password encoder, so this is why I created this password encoder. So in here, let's go ahead and basically we have to annotate this with at service. So this will be a service, or actually not service, but mainly a configuration. So at and then configuration. And from here, what we want is to have the public and then bcrypt, just like that, bcrypt password encoder. So this is one of many password encoders available to us. And here I'm going to say return, new, and then bcrypt password encoder, just like that. And obviously we need to annotate this with @bean so that this is available for us to use. And now I can take this and then go here, and let me put this just like that. And then I can say private, final, and then that, and there we go. So now we can inject it in here, and now we can pass the encoder here. So bcrypt password encoder, and now in here we can say DAO and then password provider, and there we go. So this is the configuration needed for security. So let me actually show you what we've done. So we've done a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and this is actually fully done. So now we are securing the endpoints. We haven't done verification links nor email, and we'll do that in a second. So now in here, let's go ahead and so in here, if you open up demo application, so you see that we have the main class. So what we're going to do is, so I want to start the application just to make sure things are working. So let's run the application together. So right click and then run. And we have an error. So app user required, and basically could not find the repository. So let's actually have a look. So in here, I can see why it's not finding, and that's because we need to say extends. And here we're going to extend basically JPA. So JPA repository. So this one, and then the type for this is app user, and in here the ID. So the type of the ID for our app user is long. So let me show you. So app user, so this is the class, this is the entity, and then the type for our ID is long right here. So now if I go back, oh, actually I can just run it again. There we go. We also have another error. So could not be found. So registration service. So the registration service could not be found. Cool. So we've missed also the annotation. So I guess, so where is it? So the controller, so registration controller, and then the service. So here at, and then service. So there we go. So this is why I wanted to check that everything works before we proceed, right? So with software engineering, you know, things don't work, you know, right away. So usually, you know, silly mistakes like this can happen. So there we go. So now everything is up and running, and you can see that we have our app user here. So if I show you, so if I connect to registration, and then in here /DT, and then registration, or actually /D, you can see that we have the sequence as well as the registration. So here, if I say app user, not registration, we have the app user in here and the sequence. So if I describe app user, you can see here that we have all the columns and the types as well. All right, now let me go back in here. And what I want to do first is to send a post request so that we can see this message right here. So remember, in our registration service, we have works, or let's say it works. I think it's a better message. Stop and rerun. And now let's open up. I'm gonna open up Postman, and in here I already have a couple of requests that I was playing around with. So localhost 8080, API v1, and then registration, and then on the body here, so this is the name. So Bilal, Ahmed, let's just change this to Bilal, for example, and then the password. So if we send this request, you can see that it says not found. So most likely we have an error somewhere. So let's have a look. So here, so the server started on port 8080 in here, and then let's have a look at our controller. So API v1 registration, right here. And again, so it doesn't find it because we need to annotate this with at and then post and then mapping. So let this be a post and let's restart the application. So while this is starting, let me go back, and this now, let's change this to a post instead of a put. And then in here, let's just send the request, and ta-da, you can see that it says it works. So we are good to go. So here, if I try to access, for example, let's say hello, for example, send, you can see that we get this page right here, which says login. So this is Spring Security in action. And in fact, if I take this and then go to my web browser in here, paste that in, you can see that we get redirected to this login page, basically, right? So security is actually, taking care of Spring Security is taking care of securing our endpoints, which is nice. So now let's go back in here. So we kind of have the registration kind of working. Basically, it's not doing anything. So now let's implement the logic to basically register someone. So let's open up IntelliJ in here, and I'm going to cancel this process for now. And now let's open up the registration service. And instead of saying it works, what we want is to basically, let's just do some business logic, whether the email is valid or not. And then if it's valid, then we just invoke the app user service to sign up the user. So in here, what we're going to do is first, we want to check whether the email is valid. So for this, let's create an email. So here, I'm going to say email and then validator. There we go. This will, so this implements and then predicate, and this will take a string. And let me implement the method. So test, and this will be at and then service. So for now, let's just return true. Ideally, what you want is to have a regex here. So to do regex to validate and then email. So I'm just going to assume that everything is valid just for the sake of this tutorial. So go back in here, and now I can have the at and then all and then our constructor, and let's have the private and then email validator, just like that. So now if I put this full screen, I can say email validator dot and then test and then request dot and then get email. So I can say now is and then valid and then email, just like this, email. There we go. And not email. Come on, can't type today. And yeah, so there we go. So now if, so I'm going to say if and then is and then not. So if it's not a valid email, I want to throw an exception. So for now, let's just say throw new and then illegal state exceptions. Just bear in mind that there are better ways of handling exceptions, but let's say email and then not and then valid, for example. And you could also add the email if you want, so you can have a string format, add the email, but I'm just going to keep it like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a method inside of the app user service to sign up users. So at this point, we actually said, right, so we can register this user. So let's actually forward the request to the app user and then service. So in here, after load username, oops, I don't want to exit, my bad. I meant to press command and then 1. So here what we want is to have a public and then string, and basically we want to return the link where they have to confirm, or actually the UID, basically the link that they will have to confirm in a second. So here I'm going to say sign up, so sign and then up and then user. Now this will take an app user, and for now let's just return an empty string. Now let's go back to register, so register, and instead of saying returns, or actually it works, we want to basically inject. So here let's say private, and this should be final, and final, and then app user and then service. There we go. And now let's say, oops, return app user service dot and then sign up, and then here new and then app user. Now the app user, remember we had a constructor that takes a couple of things. So here we want to pass the name, so request dot and then get first name and then comma. So here we have the username. For us, this will be the email. So in fact, what we're going to do is, if I go back to the app user, so let's actually fix something here. So basically this is actually first name. So this will be first name. So first and then name, just like that. And I want to refactor everything, including that. And this is not username, so this will be last and then name. Again, okay. And then we have email, password, app user role. And then in here, let's actually remove these. So we don't want to set those as well. And we have one problem here. It's complaining about, right. So it's complaining about get username. So we need to basically return this get username, and this will be email. So there we go. And let's just move those two. And we have another problem. Yes, right. So this is now is on the other side. So I think this is more like it. So first name, last name, email, password, and basically we need to have the get and then first name, last name, and email is for username, just like that. And I think that's it. So this fixes the problem. So let's go back here. And by the way, none of this is actually planned, so I'm just coding as I go. So now we have the request dot and then last, so get and then last name. And what was that? So last name, email. So we need to pass the email. So request dot get and then email, and on a new line, so command P, the password, so request dot get and then password, and last but not least the app role. So here we want to register a user, and there we go. So I think this is everything for this method. Now we can drill down into sign up user, and here we can have more business logic. So just before returning the empty string, we're going to check whether the user exists. So I'm going to say app user repository dot find by email, and I want to get the app user dot get email. So if is present dot and then is present right here, I'm going to name this exists, or actually user exists, just like that, and new line here. And now I'm going to say if and then user exists. So if we have a user with that given email, we want to throw new illegal state exception, and we're going to say email already taken. If this is not the case, then we know that we can proceed. So if I scroll up, and in here we want to have private final and then bcrypt, so b and then crypt, so password encoder, just like that. And I'm going to say password encoder dot and then encode, and then app user dot get password. So now I'm going to say encoded and then password, and let me put this on a new line so you see things. So usually I don't have formatting like this, but it's just because the font is too big and I can't fit everything on the screen. So now we have the password encoded in here. So let's take the application user, so app user dot and then set and then password, and then I'm going to say encoded password. And to be honest, this is pretty much the logic. So again, instead of saying empty strings, I want to say it works. And what we need to do later is let's actually do a couple of things here. So here I'm going to have a to do, and then we need to basically send confirmation and then token. So we have the user, right? So we have the user, we encoded a password, but now we actually need to save the user. So what we're going to do here is, so I'm going to say user, or actually app user repository dot and then save, and I want to save the app user, just like that. And now we should have a user in our database. So what we're going to do is the following. So let's go ahead and rerun the application. And we're going to send a request, so the exact same request that we sent before, and we should see that we have the user in our database. There we go, application up and running. Now if I open up Postman, and remember before, let me see if I can put this bigger so you can see. Actually bigger makes things worse, so I think this should be fine. So before we had a request, and this was Bilal Ahmed, and Ahmed, oh actually not Mend, Ahmed, and it should be Ahmed, just like that. So now let's actually send the post request, and there we go. You can see that it says it works. And in here, if I say select start from, and then we actually have app user in here, and let me actually press command or actually Q and then \X, and there we go. So you see that we have here Bilal Ahmed, and then we have enabled, which is false, and then locked, which is false. So what we're going to do is actually fix this and this. So let's go back to IntelliJ, And in here, if I open up app user, so here we want to have defaults. So if it is locked, I'm going to say false. And then is it enabled? I'm also going to say false. So these are the default values. So let's rerun. There we go. So let's send the same request. And again, if I run this, we lose everything. And that's the way I've configured the database, to destroy everything so that we don't, basically, because we are in testing phase, we are just testing whether the code works or not. But then if you take this to an environment, you should configure in a way that you don't lose your data, basically. So here, and actually let me just quickly show you what is doing it. So here, if I open up application.yaml, and in here, so this is what is doing it. So create drop. So yeah, so now if I send the request, it works. And if I run the exact same command, there we go. And check this out, enabled false, and then logged false. So the reason why enable is false and logged, basically it's not logged of his account, right? But here enabled is because we only want to enable this user once they confirm their email. So I think that now, so if I open up app user in here, or actually the service class, so in here, so I think that now we are in a good place to implement the email validation, where we have a token sent to their email, and then they have to click on it, and then basically their account becomes active. So if I show you, so remember, so this is the email, so Bilal Ahmed. So here, if I put that in, and then the password was password, if I sign in, and I think my web browser is actually frozen. Oh, actually, no, it's not. So it just took a while. And I'm not going to save this. So not now. And you can see that user is disabled. So this is actually what we want. So we want to enable this once they confirm their email. So that's what we're going to implement next. So let's go ahead and open up IntelliJ. And let me collapse this. And let me actually just show you the actual diagram. So here, so we actually have basically the user registration in here. Basically, we can now register a user. And I didn't actually show you the exception. So let me actually show you the exception. So if I send this request, you can see that email already taken. So this is also working. And now we have to implement the verification link where it has an expiration date, and then also sending emails. And then we are done. So let's actually tackle this first. So let's go back to IntelliJ. And in here, let's go ahead and inside of registration, what we're going to do is create a brand new package. And here I'm going to call this as token. So this is inside of registration. So I'm going to say token. And for this token here, we want to store this in a database. So we want to store the token in the database. So let's create the class, and this will be an entity. So this will be confirmation. Oops. So confirmation and then token. And we're going to have a couple of fields in here. So what we want is to have a private, and then this will be long ID. So long and then ID. We also want to store the actual token. So private and then string and then token. And we want to store the fact that the token was created at, so this will allow us to know whether it's been more than 15 minutes or not. So local and then date time, and you'll see this in a second. We also need private, and then local date time, and then expired, and then at, and I don't know why did I say that. So this should be created at, and then this should be expired at. And then we also want to know when the user has confirmed the email, or actually using the token basically. So local date time, and then confirmed, and then at. So confirmed should be like that, confirm that, and there we go. So this is everything. So now let's actually annotate this with a couple of things. So here, this will have the at, and then getter, at, and then setter, at, and then let's say here, actually let's have the no R constructor first, and let's have also a constructor without the ID. So constructor without the ID, and let me put this on a new line. So just like that, and let me put this full screen, just like that. So 4 fields, and also let's go back to app user and then take the sequence. So we're going to take all of this, and then go back and then paste that in, and here let's annotate the at and then column, and here I'm going to say nullable basically equals to false. So we can actually customize everything, but let me just put the token because it's the most critical thing. But all of these actually this also should be wrong copy paste. So that and that, so they shouldn't be nullable, and then expire that and confirm that they actually they should be not null as well. So confirm that shouldn't be null. And here let's actually rename this to expires. So expires at. So refactor all of that, and also let's change the parameter there, and I think this is a much better name. So there we go. So also let's change this. So instead of shouldn't sequence, so this will be let's say confirmation and then underscore token and then sequence, just like that. And there you have it. So I think this is looking good. So now what we need is basically to tie this token to a user. So here I'm going to have private and then app and then user, just like that. And let me also add this to the constructor. So this will be app user, just like that. And then this dot app user equals to app user. There we go. So this will now be at and then many to 1, because an application user can have many confirmation tokens. And here I'm going to say at and then join and then column, and I'm going to say nullable. Let's also say nullable equals to false, and comma there, and then name. So the name for this will be app underscore user underscore ID. There we go. So now we are sorted. So one user can have many confirmation tokens. Now let's quickly implement the service for the confirmation token. So open a project, and in here I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to say confirmation, and then token, and then service. There we go. And we also need, so let me just take this name because it's kind of long. So we also need, oops, not that, we need an interface. So class, and this will be repository, just like that, an interface, and this will be add, and then repository. There we go. And let me put this full screen. I'm going to say extends, and then JPA, oops, and then repository. This will be confirmation token, and then long. So that's the type of the ID, and put this on a new line just like this. So obviously we now have to implement a couple of things, but one of them which we definitely need is to find the confirmation token. So find by confirmation token. So here I'm going to say optional, and then this will return a confirmation token, and then say find, and then by, and what did we call it? So here we did call it token. So find by, and then token. There we go. And this now takes the actual token, so string and then token, and we are sorted. So I usually advise people to have the query as well here, but let's just move on. And if you want to learn more about JPA, check my course on it. So now let's go back to the service, so confirmation token service, and here let's annotate this with add, and then service. There we go. And what we want to do here is to expose the ability for us to basically save a confirmation token. So here I'm going to have a add, and then all our constructor, and let's say that we want to have the repository, so private final, and then confirmation token repository. And let me put this full screen. And here what we want to have a method, so public void, and then save confirmation, and then token, just like that. So here when we save the token, we want to pass a confirmation token, just like that, and let's just say name it token actually. So here we want to say confirmation repository dot, and then save, and then token. There we go. So now we can go back here to the app user service, and remember we had this to do, so send confirmation token. So here what we're going to do is pretty much just take, or actually create a token, and then create a token, and then save it using the method that we've just written. So in here we're going to say confirmation token equals to token, and then equals to, or actually token equals to new token, or confirmation token. Put this full screen, and here we have to pass the token. So the token will be of type UID, just like that. And let me name it as token. Well, actually, so this will be token, and this will be confirmation token. And then equals to UID, and then dot random UID dot to string. And this should be string actually. There we go. So now the token will be the token that we've just created. So token, and then created at will be now, and then expires at will be basically the same. So now, but plus, and then minutes. And here, this could be like coming from a configuration file, but for now, let's just say 15 minutes. And what else we have? We have in here, so we have the token, and then we have confirm that. So confirm that will be null. So let's actually go back here and then confirm token. And we want to remove the confirm that from here, just like that. And what we have to pass now is the actual user. So app and then user. Oh, actually, let's see, yeah, app user, just like that. And end this with semicolon. There we go. Format things, and it's looking good now. So let me remove this to do there. And now that we have the token, what we have to do is just save it. So for that, we need a reference to our token service. So private, final, and then confirmation token service. So that's why we have the service instead of using the repository directly. And here I'm going to say service, or actually confirmation service dot, and then save token, and then confirmation token. And there you go. So now instead of saying, or actually instead of sending it works, we're going to send the token itself. So there we go. And I think this is actually looking good. So now we actually have another to do here. So to do, send email, and we'll tackle this in a second. So there we go. So now let's actually restart the application, and let's just see whether we actually save a token in our database. Oops, we have some errors, basically like always, right? So confirmation token, it's not managed type. Okay, cool. So let's open up confirmation token, and of course I've missed the at and then entity. Start again. And there we go. So up and running. And right here, let's actually send Bilal Ahmed to our system. There we go. And you can see that we have the token here. So status OK 200. If I do a select and then star from, and then was what, confirmation token. So lowercase confirmation token. There we go. So you see that we have the token in here. So currently it's midnight. So midnight for me, and it will expire in 15 minutes right here. So 15 minutes, and this is the actual token. And confirm that, you can see that this is null. And then Bilal, so app user ID is 1 right here, and this corresponds to this one here. So now we have the token. Next, we need a way of us confirming the token. So let's implement that. So basically, we have the token. I said links token is the same thing. But basically, we have the token now. Let's actually make sure that the person can verify that token. And then we send the actual email as well. So now in here in IntelliJ, let me stop the server. And actually, before we test things, I'm actually missing and actually before we test things, we need to annotate this with at and then transactional, because basically you can see that we have two statements, so two update statements, and here we want all or nothing. Again, if you want to learn more about database or actually advanced databases, including transactions, indexes, and more, go ahead and check my website where I've got all of those courses there. So here now we can start the application. So let's just start the application, and this should hopefully be fine this time. No errors, hopefully. And yes, there we go. So no errors. So now let's open up Postman, and here let's actually press Ctrl L and select start from app user and token 0. That's fine. Send. There we go. So you can see that now if I select from confirmation token, we have 1 app user. We have Bilal here, and you can see enable is false. So what we had there was / and then confirm, and I actually have an example here already. So confirm and then !, token equals, so that's the request param. So here, let me show it to you so it makes fully sense. So inside of registration controller, so request param token, and this is basically we have to say after confirm, so confirm !, token equals, and then the token. So in our case, this is the token that we get back. So let me actually again confirm it to you. So if I press Command F, you can see the token is in our database. So here, let me just paste that in. And instead of post, this will be a GET request and send. And check this out, we have confirmed. And now if I select from the app user actually, you can see that enabled is true. So it went from false to true, which means that now if we try to log in using bilalahmed@gmail.com and then the password is password, this time it should work. Password, sign in, and there you go. So you can see that it works. So I'm actually not going to save this. And basically we have a white label error page because there is nothing on localhost 8080. So we haven't configured any mapping to localhost. So that's why it's 404, but it's actually working. So there we go. So we have secure endpoints, application user with roles, the registration service, verification links. The last thing that we have to do is actually send an email. And to send emails, this is actually straightforward. So let's go ahead and implement that. So open up IntelliJ, and this should be final. And right here, let's have, so here we're going to have a package, let's say mail, or actually email, and let's have an interface. So interface, this will be email and then sender. And the reason why we have we want an interface is because we can switch implementations. So void and then send and then string and then to, and then here the email will just be a string, so email. There we go. And there we go. And that's it. So now in here, I'm going to have a class called email, and you probably guessed it correct. So email and then service, and this implements email and then sender, and there we go. So we implemented that. And this class right here, we're going to use the Java mail sender. So here we can just or actually sorry. So here we're going to first annotate this with add service before I forget, and then add, and then all args constructor. And what we want is, so first we want to have the private, and then final, and then Java mail sender, and let's just say mail sender. And also we want to have some logging here, so let me put this full screen, and private, final, and then static, and then this will be logger. So logger from SLF4J, and I'm going to call it logger, and then equals to, and then logger, and then factory dot so get logger, and then email service class. So again, new line so you can see properly. So now we can have now we can use this class to log when we send an email. So here what we want is, so basically we have this override method, and we're going to do the following. So here we want to send a rich email. So let's say try. So we have to put this inside of a try catch block. So catch, and here this is messaging, and then jing exception, and then E. So if an exception throws, we want to use our logger dot, and then we want to error, and we want to say fail to, and then send email, and then pass E in there. And we also want to throw new illegal set exception, and then here we actually just say fail to send email. So we don't want to send to the user the actual exception. That's why we have the logger in here. Now inside, it's very simple. So we have to say mime message. So mime message, and I think this mime message comes from internet dot my message, I think. Yes. So here, and then here what we're going to do is pretty much just have the variable. So I'm going to say my message equals to, and then Java mail sender, or we actually call it mail sender dot, and then create my message. And now we can say mime, and then message helper, and let me just say helper equals to new mime message helper, and then pass the mime message inside. And let me put this on a new line so you can see everything. And then the encoding that we want is UTF dash and then 8. Hopefully you should see this coming together. So now we need to basically say helper dot, and then set, and then text. There we go. And the text will be email. And you can see that we can pass Boolean whether we want this to be an HTML or not. So email, and then this will be true. So this will be an HTML email. And let's also say helper dot set, and then to, and this will be to. So whatever email that we send, and then helper dot set, and then subject. And here I'm going to say confirm your email, just like that. And finally the from, so helper dot, and then set from, and this will be hello at amigos.com. VsCode.com. And this is pretty much how we send emails. So now what I want to do is actually say that this will be at async. So we don't want this to block the client. Ideally, we should be using like a queue so that we can retry sending emails. But for now, let's just not block the client and then just say async. So this will be an asynchronous method. Yeah, so there we go. So now let's go to the registration service, and I'm going to scroll up. So I'm going to scroll up in here, and you see where we actually register in here. So what we're going to do is the following. Let's just extract this to a variable. So here I'm going to say token. So this is the token that we receive. And now I want to basically inject the email. So private final and then email, and then sender, inject the actual interface. There we go. And now we can say email sender dot, and we can also validate the email, have a bunch of logic, but for now let's just say email.send to, and then request dot get email, and the email that we want to send is the following. So I already went ahead and stole some email from a random website and then changed it specifically for this tutorial. So I'm going to leave a link where you can find the actual email that you can copy and paste, or you can get it from the repository. So what I'm going to do is actually just paste some code here. And again, you can grab this. I'm going to leave a link where you can find this method, build email. But basically here we take the name and the link that we want. So basically, so if I go up, so here I'm going to say build and then email, and you'll see this coming together. So here I want to actually pass the name, so request dot, and for now let's just say first name, and then we also want the actual link. So the link will be as follows. So here, new line, and the link that we want is, so I'm going to say string and then link equals to, and http // localhost / and then 8080. And basically, let me just take all of this, right? So all of this, let me just space here. Let me be lazy. And then here, I'm going to delete this token and then say plus and then token. There we go. And here, this will be the link. So this is the HTML email. Again, you can find this method. I'm going to leave a link where you can find this method and you can copy and paste it. Or you can get it from the repository. So there you go. So this is the email sender bit here. So this is the link, and then we return the token. We could actually also return this, but let's just keep the token in here. And there you have it. So now what we need is an email server to test all of this. So there is a nice email server that we can use written in Node. So in here, let me see if I can open a new tab, and then let me go to Google, and I think it's called mail and then dev. So let me put this bigger, and yeah, so this is the mail dev. So basically we can test sending emails during development. So this is quite nice, and it's very straightforward. You just run npm install, make sure that you have Node, and then mail dev, or if you fancy Docker, you can try Docker. So the reason why I'm not going to try Docker is because I'm using the new M1 chip, and if I run Docker right now, my computer will just die basically, because I'm using IntelliJ and they're not all compatible yet. So I'm just going to basically, I already have this installed, so I'm going to leave the link for this as well, where you can find. So let me go to my terminal, and here, so I'm not going to update for now. So here, let me just put this full screen. So here, I'm just going to say mail and then dev. And you can see that this now says the, let me put full, even bigger. So here, web app running at HTTP and then 1080. So let's just take this and open up a new tab, paste that in, and there we go. So you can see that we have this email server up and running. So that was super easy. So now what we need to do is to configure our application to point to this mail server. So let's go back to IntelliJ, and if I open a project and then go to application.yaml, so in here you see that we have Spring, and basically under Spring, if I type, so here, so make sure it's under Spring, right? So the indentation matters with YAML. So here I can say mail, and you can see that we have a bunch of properties. So I actually have this on my buffer, and again, you can find all of this from the repo. And basically I'm just saying mail and then host, the port 1025, which is this one. So the one for our mail server, and then username, it doesn't really matter. You can say hello. And then we have some SSL stuff going on, and then connectivity, timeouts, and yeah, so this is the configuration for our email. So now if we refresh, or actually restart the application, and there you go, you can see no errors. And now you can see no logs as well, and basically there is nothing in here. So now let's send the request. So Bilal, and wow, we have a 500. So let's actually, oh right, so yeah, so token not found, right? So basically this wasn't the request that I wanted to send. So I wanted to send a post. In the body, I want to send Bilal with a password, and then send. There we go. That seems to work. You can see the token here. And now I was expecting to see some login here, but it's fine. So let's check the server, and let me refresh here. Nothing. So let me go back to IntelliJ, and in here it seems that right, okay, classic, we actually forgot to send the email. So mail sender, so mail sender dot, and then send, and then we want to send the my message, just like that. So yeah, there we go. So a little sad, or a bit disappointed that we've done all the setup, but we didn't send the actual email, which is sad. So yeah, so cool. So now let's try again. So let's send a new registration. There we go. So you see that took a while, but I guess it's because it's trying to connect to the email server, or the mail server. Status 200, and then the token here. So in here I was expecting to see some logs, but again, no logs. And check this out. So we have an email right here. So now let me click on the email, and you can see that we have this awesome email where it says, hi, the first name, and then thank you for registering. please click on the link to activate. So here, and also it says that the link will expire in 15 minutes. So here, if I press on activate, and this doesn't seem to be working, so I think it's because in here, so here, this should be HTTP, just like that, colon, and then // // So let me again restart the application. Cool. So now let me send the request again. There we go. So the request was fine, 200. And in here, you can see that we have a second email. So 1055. Click on it. Now let's activate the account and check this out. So this is now confirmed, which means that, so if I take Bilal email, so here, and then go back here, and then in here, let me refresh this. So put the actual email there, and then the password was password. Sign in, and there we go. So you can see that this works, and we get 404 because we haven't mapped any endpoint to this path in here. So awesome. So now what I want to do is, so basically in here, I want to actually select the confirmation token, and you can see that it's been confirmed at, and this was the time that I actually confirmed the token. So if I was to, if I was to click on the email again, so here, activate now. So this time we actually get an error back, and it says email already confirmed. So this is actually working. So yeah, so this is nice. So let's actually try and register someone else. So here, let's say Maria, and then Jones, and then M, and then Jones, and the password, just leave a password. So I'm going to send, and then quickly go back. We should see an email right here in a second. There we go. You can see the email, and let me show you a database. So let's select start from confirmation token. So this is the ID. So right here. So you can see that it hasn't been confirmed and expires in 15 minutes, right? So what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say update. So let me actually clear this, and then here I want to say update, and then confirmation token, and then set, and I'm going to say expires at, and then I'm going to say equals to now. So I'm just going to say equals to now, where, and then ID equals to 2. So basically I want to expire this confirmation token. So enter. You can see that if I now select, you can see that expires, and basically expires at now, and basically right. So this time here is kind of incorrect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just run the exact same command, and then I'm going to say now minus, so here minus, and then interval, and then I'm going to say let's say 1 hour. Enter, and you can see that it did update. So if I select again, so let me clear the screen, Control L. If I select from confirmation token, so expires at, okay, I think there is something wrong with my time zone. So this is actually meant to go back. So created at, basically now is not working for me. So let's see 1 and then day. So let's say that the token already expired. So let me select again, enter, and there we go. So expires at, so this is the previous day. right? So the 12th, and this is the 13th. So what I want to do now here is on this email that we've just received for Maria Jones. So hi Maria, let's go ahead and try to activate. And you can see that here, token already expired. So we can't really basically use it. So what we need to do is actually send a new one. There we go. And it says email already taken. And this is because inside of this sign up user here, so basically the exception which is being thrown is this one here, right? So here we probably want to do something like if the user exists and it hasn't confirmed its email, we probably want to send the email again, right? So I'm going to leave it to do here for you so you can implement this. So to do, so basically it should be inside here, right? So try and implement this logic and it should be really straightforward. So if email not confirmed, send confirmation and then email. And probably also you want to check whether so here let me also say to do should be like that. And so basically if it's the same user which is trying to register and they haven't confirmed their email, send another one. Otherwise we throw this exception, right? So let's actually say here this will be, so let's say Ali. So Ali and then Ali. There we go. And the email is just Ali, right? So if I send, and we should see an email in a second. There we go, Ali. And then here, let's just confirmed. And if I go back in here, basically I want to log out. So log out, and there was an explosion. Wow. So cool. So we've logged out and the email is ali@gmail.com and then password and then sign in. And there we go. That's really nice. So it's actually working. So there we have it. We actually managed to implement all of this right here. So you saw that we actually have a bug in here. So I will leave this to you to implement this logic. But yeah, so this is pretty much it. So we've managed to implement the security part of the application, the application user with some roles, the registration. We have verification links right here that expires after a certain amount of time. And then we are also sending emails, and then we are storing these. Oh, actually, we're not storing the emails into the database, but we are storing everything else into the database. Also, you might want to, for example, store the fact that we've sent an email to a person, and then you can, perform some reporting against it. Maybe check how many emails you actually send per user, so on and so forth. All right, so it was a pleasure teaching you how to implement this entire backend. Yeah, so next let me go ahead and actually wrap things up. But if you want to find the source code for everything, and what I'm going to do actually is implement this for you. So I'm going to implement this for you so you see how I do it. But feel free to go and give it a try because this has been a really nice exercise. Next, let me go ahead and wrap up things up. Right, it was a pleasure teaching you this awesome registration system. And yeah, let me know what you thought about this video, whether you want to see more videos like this. Maybe if you have like an idea or a little project that you want me to build, go ahead and send a submission, or comment down below. Or also, if you join the private Facebook group as well as Discord, you can let me know what you want to see next. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also join the Amigoscode community. It's growing like never before. And I'll catch you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.